The Meridian flagship, Quantum Precision, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. High Commander Axura stood motionless in the observation chamber, her iridescent scales shifting colors as she processed the sensor data streaming through her neural interface. Earth was exactly as their long-range scans had indicated, a jewel of blue and green, rich with resources their civilization desperately needed. Analysis confirms, High Commander, reported Science Director Velen, his tentacle-like appendages dancing across the holographic displays. The humans have achieved spaceflight, but remain confined to their solar system. Their technology is peculiar. Axura turned her attention to the detailed scans of human civilization. The Meridians had encountered countless species across the galaxy, but something about these readings puzzled her. Elaborate, Director. Their technological development doesn't follow any recognized pattern, Velen explained, bringing up comparative charts. Most species progress linearly, mastering one technology before moving to the next. Humans seem to develop multiple technologies simultaneously, often in seemingly random directions. They're still using primitive combustion engines alongside quantum computers. Inefficient, Axura commented, her scales rippling with disapproval. The Meridians had perfected the art of technological advancement through precise, calculated steps, each innovation built perfectly upon the last, creating an unbroken chain of progress. This chaotic human approach defied their understanding. There's more, Velen continued. Their information networks are redundant. They maintain multiple systems performing the same functions, often with different technologies. It's as if they deliberately avoid standardization. Axura studied the planet's defense systems. The humans had established a basic orbital presence, primitive satellites, a small space station, and what appeared to be rudimentary weapon platforms. Nothing that could challenge a Meridian warship, yet something about their deployment pattern caught her attention. These orbital formations, she indicated, they appear random, but run another analysis. Velen complied, and his expression shifted to one of surprise. Remarkable. The seemingly chaotic arrangement creates overlapping fields of coverage. Any attempt to approach Earth would require navigating an unpredictable maze of intersecting orbital paths. Accident or design? Axura wondered aloud. Unknown, Velen admitted. Human documentation suggests their space programs are fragmented among multiple nations, with minimal coordination. Yet the combined effect of their independent efforts creates a surprisingly effective defensive screen. Axura made her decision. The Meridian civilization needed Earth's resources, particularly its rare minerals and biological diversity. Their own worlds were failing, stripped bare by millennia of precise, efficient exploitation. This chaotic, abundant planet could be their salvation. Begin the standard first contact protocol, she commanded. We'll approach openly, demonstrate our technological superiority, and offer them the honor of joining the Meridian Concordat. And if they refuse? Velen asked. Then we'll demonstrate why no species has ever successfully resisted incorporation into our civilization. Axura replied, her scales shifting to a deep, confident purple. The Quantum Precision moved closer to Earth, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to conventional detection methods. As they approached, more anomalies in human civilization became apparent. Their cities weren't arranged in efficient geometric patterns like Meridian settlements. Instead, they sprawled organically, following terrain features and seemingly random development patterns. High Commander, Velen called out, his voice carrying a note of concern. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from their population centers. Weapons? Axura asked. Unclear. The emissions don't match any known patterns. They're using multiple different power generation methods simultaneously. Fossil fuels, nuclear fission, solar collection, and several experimental technologies we can't identify. Axura felt the first stirring of unease. The humans' apparent technological inefficiency might serve some purpose they hadn't yet grasped. But she quickly dismissed the thought. Their civilization had incorporated hundreds of species into the concordat. These humans, with their chaotic development and fragmented society, couldn't possibly present a significant challenge. "Prepare the first contact message," she ordered. "Broadcast it on all frequencies they're capable of receiving." As the message was transmitted, Axura watched the human communications networks light up with activity. Their response would determine whether this incorporation would be peaceful or otherwise. Either way, the Meridians would have what they needed. What she didn't realize was that humanity's chaotic nature, which seemed so inefficient to Meridian sensibilities, was about to become their greatest strength. The very unpredictability that the Meridians dismissed as primitive would soon prove to be their most sophisticated defense. The United Earth Defense Council convened in an underground facility beneath the ruins of ancient Rome, a location that perfectly embodied humanity's habit of building new systems atop old ones. Representatives from every major nation sat around a circular table, their faces illuminated by holographic displays showing the Meridian vessel in orbit. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's leading genotechnologist, stood before the assembly, her expression grave. The Meridian's message is clear: join their concordat or face the consequences. But their transmission contained something far more revealing than their ultimatum. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show complex data patterns. Their entire communication system is based on perfect mathematical precision. Every signal, every piece of data, follows absolute patterns. There's no redundancy, no variation, no room for error. "And this helps us how?" asked General Rodriguez, his scared face reflecting decades of military service. "Because," Chen smiled, "it tells us everything about how they think. The Meridians don't just prefer order, they require it. Their entire civilization appears to be built on principles of absolute efficiency and predictability." Intelligence Director Patel leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. "You're suggesting we use their precision against them?" "Precisely," Chen responded. "But first, we need to understand why they're really here." Their message spoke of cultural exchange and technological advancement, but their ship's energy readings tell a different story. They're running on minimal power. I believe they're desperate. The council chamber erupted in overlapping conversations, a chaos of voices that would have horrified the orderly Meridians. Council President Zhang raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Chen, your recommendation." "Let them think they're succeeding," she replied, "while we prepare our real response." Above Earth, High Commander Axura watched with growing frustration as human leaders from different nations responded to their message with seemingly contradictory statements. Some expressed enthusiasm for joining the concordat, others voiced skepticism, and some simply asked endless questions. "They're not even coordinating their responses," she complained to Science Director Velen. "Different human nations are pursuing different diplomatic approaches simultaneously. It appears to be their standard operating procedure," Velen observed. "Their entire history is filled with multiple simultaneous approaches to every challenge they face." "Initiate the infiltration protocol," Axura commanded. "If they can't present a unified response, we'll help them reach the correct conclusion." The Meridians deployed their most sophisticated infiltration units, synthetic beings designed to perfectly mimic human appearance and behavior. Each infiltrator was programmed with complete knowledge of human customs and social norms, ready to influence Earth's leadership from within. What followed was perhaps the most spectacular failure in Meridian military history. The first infiltrator, designated Alpha, attempted to integrate into a major financial institution. Its behavior was perfect, its work performance immaculate. Too perfect. Within days, coworkers were making jokes about its rigid adherence to schedule and complete lack of personal drama. "Hey, new guy," a colleague called out one day, "want to grab some lunch? There's this great food truck outside that keeps changing its menu randomly. You never know what you'll get." Alpha's programming struggled to compute the appeal of intentional uncertainty in meal choices. Its slight hesitation was all it took. In a world where humans had spent centuries telling stories about robots and aliens living among them, such perfect behavior stood out like a spotlight. Beta Unit attempted to infiltrate a military command center. Its knowledge of protocols was flawless, its execution of duties impeccable. Then came the day when a superior officer intentionally gave it incorrect instructions to test its response. The unit's inability to recognize and adapt to this common human practice of testing subordinates marked it immediately as non-human. Gamma Unit was discovered when it couldn't understand why its human colleagues intentionally took longer routes to work some days, just because. Delta failed when it couldn't appreciate why humans would choose less efficient solutions because they were more fun. Back on the Quantum Precision, Axura received the infiltration reports with increasing alarm. "How can they detect our units so easily?" she demanded. "It appears," Velon replied carefully, "that human society functions on principles that directly contradict our understanding of efficient behavior. They expect and even value imperfection. They intentionally introduce random elements into their daily routines. Our infiltrators' perfect performance doesn't help them blend in, it makes them stand out." Impossible. Axura's scales shifted to a deep blue of confusion. No advanced civilization can function this way. But as she watched the humans systematically expose and document each infiltration attempt, turning their discoveries into entertainment via something called social media, she began to understand that she was facing something unprecedented, a species that had turned unpredictability into a defensive advantage. What the Meridians couldn't grasp was that humans hadn't detected their infiltrators through superior technology or vigilance. They had detected them through countless generations of storytelling about robots and aliens, through an ingrained cultural expectation that anything too perfect was probably dangerous. Humanity's greatest defense wasn't their technology. It was their culture of embracing chaos. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her quantum laboratory deep beneath the Australian outback, surrounded by holographic displays showing the results of her team's latest analysis of Meridian technology. The air hummed with the sound of quantum processors calculating probability matrices, while her international team of scientists worked at various stations around the vast underground facility. "Run it again," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the simulation of a Meridian ship's neural network. This time, she introduced a new variable, quantum uncertainty at a macro scale. The results were stunning. "Everyone, look at this," she called out. The team gathered around as she highlighted the simulation results. "See how their systems respond to quantum uncertainty. They don't just struggle with it, they actively try to eliminate it." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her quantum physics expert, leaned forward. "It's as if their entire technology is built on the assumption that the universe must behave predictably at all times." "Exactly," Chen replied. "Their computational systems can't handle true randomness. They don't just prefer order. They're incapable of processing genuine uncertainty." The discovery spread quickly through Earth's scientific community. The Meridians, for all their advanced technology, had developed along a path that increasingly eliminated uncertainty from their systems. Their precision was their weakness. Meanwhile, aboard the Quantum Precision, High Commander Axura was facing her own crisis. The humans had begun broadcasting what appeared to be random signals across all frequencies. Her ship's communication systems were struggling to filter out the meaningful data from the chaos. "Report," she demanded of her increasingly frustrated crew. Science Director Velon's scales had turned a sickly gray. "The humans are implementing what they call Operation Quantum Noise. They're generating signals based on quantum fluctuations, creating patterns that are genuinely unpredictable." "That's impossible," Axura insisted. "All patterns must have an underlying order." "Not according to quantum mechanics," Velon replied. "The humans have embraced quantum uncertainty as a fundamental principle. They're not just accepting randomness. They're weaponizing it." Back on Earth, military leaders gathered in the underground facility as Dr. Chen explained the implications of their discovery. "The Meridians evolved in a way that made them masters of precision and prediction," she explained. but they never developed the ability to handle true randomness. Their minds, their computers, their entire civilization is built on the assumption that everything must follow understandable patterns. General Rodriguez smiled. And we humans, we evolved dealing with chaos. Our brains are uniquely adapted to finding patterns in randomness, but also accepting when there are no patterns to find. We can handle uncertainty in a way the Meridians simply cannot. The implications were staggering. Humanity's perceived weakness, their messy, chaotic approach to everything from city planning to warfare, was actually their greatest strength against this particular adversary. The human counter-offensive began not with a military strike, but with what they called Operation Uncertainty Principle. Every human transmission to the Meridian ship now contained quantum-encrypted data that changed randomly based on particle entanglement. Earth's defensive satellites began moving in genuinely random patterns while maintaining their defensive coverage. The effect on Meridian systems was devastating. Their predictive algorithms crashed trying to calculate impossible probabilities. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto platforms whose movements were truly random rather than just complex. They're not just using randomness defensively, Velon reported to an increasingly disturbed Axura. They're developing weapons based on quantum uncertainty principles. Their new torpedoes change position probabilistically. We literally cannot predict where they'll be from moment to moment. Axura watched as her perfect, orderly invasion plan crumbled in the face of human chaos. The species they had dismissed as primitive had turned their greatest weakness into an insurmountable advantage. Dr. Chen stood before the Defense Council again, but this time her expression was triumphant. The Meridians aren't just struggling with our quantum-based defenses, she reported. They're fundamentally incapable of adapting to them. Every attempt they make to impose order on our quantum systems just makes their confusion worse. And the best part, she continued, allowing herself a small smile. We're just getting started. Humanity has only begun to explore the military applications of quantum uncertainty. The more the Meridians try to impose their order on our chaos, the more vulnerable they become. The council chamber erupted in excited discussion. For the first time since the Meridians arrived, humanity had more than hope. They had a genuine advantage. In their quest for perfect order, their adversaries had engineered out the very adaptability they now desperately needed. As alarms blared throughout the quantum precision, High Commander Axura faced a realization that shook her understanding of civilization itself. Sometimes, chaos wasn't just powerful, it was necessary. The United Earth Defense Council's war room hummed with activity as holographic displays showed hundreds of small spacecraft emerging from hidden bases around the planet. These weren't traditional military vessels. They were something entirely new, designed specifically to exploit the Meridian's weakness. Operation Chaos Theory is now active, General Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying across the command center. All quantum drive ships, commence launch sequence. The new ships, dubbed Uncertainty-class interceptors, were humanity's answer to Meridian superiority. Each vessel incorporated quantum probability engines that made their movements genuinely unpredictable, even to their own pilots. The ships didn't so much fly as quantum tunnel through probabilistic space, appearing and disappearing according to wave functions rather than traditional flight paths. Aboard the Quantum Precision, High Commander Axura watched in growing horror as her sensor systems failed to establish lock on any of the approaching human vessels. Impossible, she muttered, her scales cycling through colors of distress. Their trajectories violate every known law of combat mathematics. High Commander, Science Director Velon reported, his voice strained. We're detecting quantum field fluctuations throughout their fleet. They're not just using quantum uncertainty for encryption anymore. They've weaponized quantum probability itself. The first wave of human attacks demonstrated the terrifying effectiveness of their new strategy. Uncertainty-class ships would appear at random coordinates, launch attacks from probabilistic vectors that Meridian computers couldn't predict, then quantum tunnel to new positions that existed in a state of superposition until observed. Meridian targeting systems, designed to calculate precise firing solutions, were worse than useless against vessels that could exist in multiple positions simultaneously. Their advanced neural networks, trained to recognize patterns, began to crash when faced with genuine randomness. Dr. Chen monitored the battle from Earth's Quantum Command Center, watching as her theories were proved correct on a massive scale. The Meridians evolved to be perfect predictors, she explained to the officers around her. But in doing so, they lost the ability to handle true uncertainty. They've become so dependent on patterns that random events actually damage their neural processing. The human attack wasn't just military, it was mathematical. Each ship carried quantum noise generators that broadcast signals based on particle entanglement, creating data patterns that were genuinely unpredictable. Meridian communication systems, designed to filter signal from noise, began to fail as they encountered noise that couldn't be filtered because it contained actual information. Status report, Axura demanded, watching as another squadron of her ships lost targeting capability. High Commander, the humans, they're not just fighting us, Velon struggled to explain. They're attacking our fundamental understanding of reality. Their weapons don't follow orderly paths. Their communications don't maintain consistent patterns. They're using probability itself as a weapon. The Meridian fleet, which had arrived expecting to easily dominate a primitive species, found itself facing an enemy that had turned scientific principles they had never fully embraced into devastating weapons. Humanity hadn't just accepted quantum uncertainty, they had learned to thrive in it. Earth's quantum fleet executed maneuvers that seemed to defy logic itself. Ships would split into quantum superpositions, existing in multiple states until observed, making it impossible for Meridian weapons to target them effectively. Traditional space combat tactics proved useless against vessels that operated on probability rather than certainty. They're not just using chaos, Velon realized, watching another display crash as it tried to predict unpredictable patterns. They're using our own need for order against us. Every attempt we make to impose predictability on their movements just makes it harder for our systems to function. In the Quantum Command Center, Dr. Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Meridian fleet's formations begin to break down. The beauty of quantum combat, she explained to the assembled officers, is that the more they try to predict our movements, the more their systems fail. Their greatest strength, their perfect prediction capability, has become their greatest weakness. The space around Earth had become a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity fought not with superior firepower or advanced technology, but with the fundamental uncertainty of the universe itself. Their weapons didn't need to be more powerful. They just needed to be unpredictable enough to paralyze the Meridian's perfect but inflexible systems. As her fleet's capabilities continued to degrade, High Commander Axura faced a decision that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of civilization itself. The species they had dismissed as primitive had discovered a truth that the Meridians, in their quest for perfect order, had forgotten. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't precision, it's probability. High Commander Axura stood before the Meridian High Council, her scales a subdued gray, as she delivered the most difficult report of her career. The massive crystalline chamber, designed to embody perfect geometric harmony, now seemed to mock their civilization's rigid adherence to order. The humans, she began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil, have not only successfully defended their world, they have demonstrated a fundamental flaw in our approach to civilization itself. The council chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Supreme Counselor Xerix raised a limb for silence. "Explain," he commanded. "Our civilization's pursuit of perfect order has led us to engineer out something vital, the ability to adapt to genuine uncertainty. The humans haven't just preserved this ability, they've mastered it." Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Chen and her team were studying the data from their quantum warfare campaign when they detected an unexpected transmission from the Meridian fleet. Unlike previous communications, this one was intentionally imperfect, encoded with deliberate variations that demonstrated a dramatic shift in meridian thinking. "They're learning," Chen whispered, a mix of surprise and respect in her voice. The message was simple. The Meridians requested a dialogue, not to negotiate Earth's surrender, but to propose something unprecedented in their history, a collaborative exchange of knowledge. In the following weeks, as diplomatic channels opened between the two civilizations, a remarkable truth emerged. The Meridians' desperate resource situation had driven them to seek out Earth not just for its physical resources, but because their own worlds were failing due to their rigid, unchanging systems. "Your chaos," Axura explained to the Earth Defense Council during the first formal meeting, "is not just a military advantage. It's a fundamental survival trait. Our perfect order, which we thought was the pinnacle of evolution, has become our prison." Dr. Chen, sitting across from the Meridian commander, nodded in understanding. "And our apparent disorder, which you initially saw as primitive, is actually a sophisticated response to the universe's inherent uncertainty." The solution that emerged was as unexpected as it was revolutionary. The Meridians offered their advanced technology and precise engineering capabilities, while humanity shared their understanding of adaptation, quantum uncertainty, and the creative power of controlled chaos. Together, they began developing hybrid systems that combine meridian precision with human adaptability. The results transformed both civilizations. Meridian worlds, once locked in rigid patterns of resource consumption, learned to implement dynamic, sustainable systems inspired by Earth's natural cycles. Human technology, enhanced by meridian precision, made remarkable leaps forward. But unlike the Meridians' original perfect systems, these new technologies maintained humanity's crucial ability to adapt and evolve. "We thought we were perfecting the universe," Axura reflected, standing with Dr. Chen in Earth's quantum research facility months later. "Instead, we were limiting it." Chen smiled, watching as human and Meridian scientists worked together, combining their different approaches to understanding reality. "Perhaps true perfection isn't about eliminating uncertainty," she suggested. "Maybe it's about finding the balance between order and chaos." The partnership between humans and Meridians became a model for galactic civilization. Other species, watching the transformation, began to question their own assumptions about progress and perfection. The galaxy was learning that the most resilient systems weren't the most orderly. They were the ones that could adapt to change. Years later, as the first hybrid chips incorporating both meridian precision and human quantum uncertainty principles prepared to explore beyond known space, Axura stood beside Chen on the observation deck. The vessel's crystalline hulls shimmered with seemingly random patterns that nevertheless followed deeper, more complex laws. "We came to teach you order," Axura said, her scales shifting through patterns that would have once been considered chaotic by her people. "Instead, you taught us that the universe is far more interesting with a little uncertainty." Chen nodded, watching as the ships prepared to jump into the unknown. "And you taught us that even chaos needs a bit of structure to be truly effective. Together, we're stronger than either of us could have been alone." The hybrid fleet launched, their quantum drives incorporating both precise meridian engineering and unpredictable human innovation. As they disappeared into hyperspace, they carried with them a new understanding that the greatest civilizations weren't those that conquered chaos or imposed perfect order, but those that learned to dance between the two. Back on Earth, in classrooms and universities across the planet, a new generation learned the lesson of the Meridian War, that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons, but their fundamental ability to embrace uncertainty, adapt to change, and find opportunity in chaos. And in the vast networks of space, Meridian and human ships patrolled together, their combined fleets a testament to the power of balance between order and chaos, precision and probability, certainty and change. A living symbol of the truth that the universe's greatest works are written not in perfect lines, but in the beautiful complexity of controlled chaos.